This is Join Us in France, episode 561. 561. Bonjour, I'm Annie Sargent, and Join Us in France is the podcast where we take a conversational journey through the beauty, culture, and flavors of France. Today, I bring you a conversation with Jackie Barnes about her enchanting visit to the Dordogne. She went village hopping, and not just the Dordogne, she went further as well. I think, if you're dreaming of cobblestone streets and medieval castles and wonderful local cuisine, you're going to enjoy this episode. This podcast runs on chocolatine, caffeine, and the support of lovely humans like you. You book my itinerary consults, take my voice map tours, ride shotgun in my electric car, come to the boot camp, or slip me a few euros on Patreon, and I love you for it. Want to keep me going and skip the ads? There's a link for that in the show notes as well. And for everything else, head to joinusinfrance.com/boutique, where you can purchase any of my products or services. For the magazine part of the podcast, after my chat with Jackie today, I'll discuss the Weekend du Patrimoine, or Heritage Days, and how you can make the most of it if you're in Paris or in France. If you'd like to find all the links that we discussed and the full episode transcript for this episode, you'll find everything on the page that lists all the episodes by month. It's at joinusinfrance.com/episodes. And if you'd like a handy summary of the conversation with all the useful links, subscribe to the newsletter at joinusinfrance.com/newsletter. It is the best way to stay in the loop. Bonjour, Jackie Barnes, and welcome to Join Us in France.
Thank you.
How wonderful to talk to you today about your experiences in the plus beau village de France. It was kind of the theme of your trip, wasn't it?
Yes, I had gotten a book on the most beautiful villages, and it had a map in it, and I researched them and figured out an area that I could hit a bunch of them, and that's what my husband and I did.
All right. And so when was this trip?
This trip was in March and April of 2022.
Oh, so it's been a while.
It's been a while.
But you know what? The plus beau village don't change that much.
Well, that's kind of what I was thinking. When you've been around since the 13th, 14th, 15th century, there's probably not a whole lot of change.
Okay. So what made you choose this? Is this because you had been to France a million times and you didn't know what else to do?
Well, I had been to Paris twice, and I loved it. I love planning driving vacations, and my husband and I have traveled a lot of the world and most of the United States, and I love planning car trips where you stay a few nights, and so that's what we did. I positioned ourselves in 4 different places so we could see the most beau villages per minute.
Right. Yeah, a lot of parts of France have some, but they're kind of far and few between, whereas in the areas where you went, the Aveyron and the Dordogne, there are a lot of them.
Yeah, that's why I picked that, because I saw the pictures. And I have a friend who writes French or France walking guides, and I love walking in France. And she had a walking route from Martel it started in Martel and ended in Martel, and it goes on the GR trails. I asked her what was her favorite towns, and so I had an idea of where I wanted to go as well.
Oh, maybe you can tell us the name of one of her books or something so I can put a link to it in the show notes.
Well, hers is ilovewalkinginfrance.com, and sells walking guidebooks, just PDFs, and they're fantastic. She is such a great person. She lives in Australia, and we just found each other on the internet because of our love of travel.
Yeah. And I have to say that, nothing wrong with what she's doing because I don't know it and it's probably great. But there's also a website that does this sort of thing. It's called Komoot, Komoot, and it's a European company that lists very good walks and cycling paths and things like that.
Oh, okay.
And the advantage of a website is that it's constantly updated because people submit photos and opinions and submit tips about this particular trail. To me, one of the most difficult things about going to a trail or bike ride or something is finding the trailhead. Like sometimes it's not obvious, is it?
No, I agree. No, and every vacation she takes from Australia, usually once a year, involves her walking either the same GR to update her guidebooks or new ones that she wants to do.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it is pretty cool.
That's great. That's great. Okay, so you had chosen this part of France. One other tidbit to get out of the way. Did you find it so you like driving vacations in general? Is it very different in France than in other parts of the world where you've done this?
I think, well, because you're driving on the same side of the road as we do in the United States. And so that is not an issue. We've driven all over Spain. The only time that it was Ireland on the opposite side of the road but really my GPS worked well on my phone and I used T-Mobile. I didn't have to get a separate GPS and it only took us off the beaten track once or twice. We usually stay in Airbnbs. And so I carry an extra bag that has my spices and my foil and my plastic bags and containers to heat things up in. Yeah, it's the only bag we check. So if it got lost, oh well. But otherwise, we just travel with carry-on in a backpack and we're ready to go. And we're usually gone for, 3-4 weeks at a time.
Wow, that's fantastic. If you use Airbnbs, then obviously you probably have a place to wash your clothes most places.
Yes, I look for that at least halfway through a trip so that,
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Another good possibility that I think is developing more and more in France, but you wouldn't find them in Plus Beau Village, would be appart hotel. Appart is the beginning of appartement, but it's the hotel that's kind of like an apartment because you have a common kitchen and you have well, actually, maybe it's just a laundry that's common, but you have a small kitchen in your area, you have a little desk, you have more than a hotel room. And it's not fancy, but for people who want to cook their own meals and want to do their own laundry, I mean, we also have laundromats in France as well. So,
Yes. Well, and sometimes going to the laundromat, I meet some of the best people. You meet locals and you meet other tourists. And so I don't mind doing that. On this particular trip, we stayed. And so we were 4 nights in each place. So we really got a chance. I mean, it's like, obviously, it's not forever, but 4 nights is a really nice. You have 3 full days to do things and not have to move your things.
yeah, that's really good. If you had asked me before you went, I might have told you, "Ooh, that might be a long time to go in." But if you have several beautiful villages around where you're staying. So did you typically stay in one of the Plus Beau Village?
Yes, the first one that we stayed in was Sarlat. And well, we took the train from Paris from Austerlitz to Brive-la-Gaillarde.
Brive-la-Gaillarde.
Thank you. And then we rented a car from there. And then we drove to Sarlat. And so that day it was actually snowing in the end of March. I know. We have beautiful pictures. There's nobody in Sarlat. We stayed in a great Airbnb called Apartment La Cardinal. And it was on a little tiny square. And it was really, really a great place to stay. There were only a few restaurants open in town. So our host told us where to go eat dinner. It had a small kitchen. The next day was market day. So I went to the market and bought, strawberries from the strawberry lady. Like there's nothing like the strawberry lady, and cheeses. And I saw these huge thing of bread. And I thought, we can't eat all that bread. And they will cut how much you want. And I was like, this is like the best. So anyway, we stayed in Sarlat for 4 nights. And from there, we took day trips. So the first day we were just in Sarlat because that was kind of our travel day. And then we went out to our first Beau Village, which was La Roque Gagiac.
La Roque Gajac.
Okay, Gajac, thank you. And so that we went in the morning and, it was beautiful. The wisteria was blooming, even though it had snowed the day before, overlooking the Dordogne River. And it was a steep climb up. And we really, really wanted to canoe that day, but it was still pretty cold. So they were renting canoes, but we were like, nah, we're not going to do that. We were coming back to the area later. So we knew that maybe if the weather was better, we could return, which we did. And so we hiked up to the top, overlooked the river. And again, there were hardly any people because that's what's nice about traveling in March. Weather doesn't bother me. I'd rather travel with less people and bundle up. It's just the way I travel. And so, yeah, so we did that. And then we went to Dome or Domme.
Dome, yes.
We went to Dome after we went to La Roque, and again, high cliff overlooking the Dordogne River. And that's where we saw the graffiti from the Knights Templar. And that was really cool. They were just carved in the walls, and the people in the town were really nice to point out where it was. There were a few restaurants open, and there were a few more people because it was the afternoon, so it had warmed up a little bit. So we had a nice lunch overlooking the river. We did not sit outside. I would have liked to have, but that was not in the cards. But the Knights Templar stuff, that's in Dome. The Knights Templar they were actually imprisoned there. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And anyway, that dates back to 1307. Sorry, that would be I'm a teacher. I was a teacher. So I like that information. And that was pretty much our whole day.
Hang on. I got to stop you for just a second because the strawberries. Okay, so I was just in Paris, and one of the things I did is I wanted to do something special for my patrons, and so I did a special walk that I'm not going to do a voice map of. I just wanted to walk it and give them details of where I went and all of that. And that included a couple of foodie streets, Rue des Martyrs, Rue Cadet being two of them, and they are very close together. And on Rue des Martyrs, because it's a very popular, it's a very famous street in Paris, I actually saw strawberries for 40 euros a flat, which I was apoplectic. So this was the first half of March where I don't know where they were getting the strawberries from because it's not strawberry season yet, right? And so just be careful. When you hear about fabulous strawberries in France, if it's off season, they're not going to be that great at any price.
I have no idea. This lady was just selling them by the pint. And my friend who writes the guidebooks had said, I posted a picture. She goes, "Oh my gosh, you met the strawberry lady at the market." I said, yes. And they were red all the way through, and they weren't big. They were just a regular sized strawberry. And they were so delicious. And I try when I plan, I look to see when these towns are going to have market days because I do enjoy cooking. And I like to go we're more likely to eat lunch out and then eat dinner if I can go to a market. So anyway, the strawberries were amazing. And that was the end of March, beginning of April. I don't care if they were hot house. It didn't matter. They were delicious.
Well, she probably has a greenhouse because it would have been too, but if she grows them herself, then they come back every year and she's babied her strawberries because she can make a living out of that. And that's great. But don't pay ridiculous prices is what I'm trying to say.
Oh, no. I think they were maybe like €5 for a pint or €4.
Exactly. So this was 2022. By now it's a little more, like maybe 6 or 7 euros for a pint, but never 40. That is not right.
No, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. So anyway, that's just what I wanted to interject. A lot of these places have wonderful markets, and some of them are very popular, like the one in Sarlat. I discussed with one guy about the price of his foie gras because it was very high. And I was just like, are you just trying to sell your foie gras to visitors? Because I'm never going to buy it at that price. And he just shrugged it. Whatever. Yeah, well, it's French people are very price sensitive is what I'm saying. And sometimes visitors are not price sensitive enough. For our own pocketbooks, I'm like, please don't go paying, outrageous prices for things because then we can't afford them when you go after you.
Right. That actually is a really, really good point because sometimes as a tourist, you're not sure. I know what I pay at home for chicken. And so I tend to cook a lot of chicken when I'm on the road. It's just easy because it comes in parts. Like if I buy hamburger meat or something, then I have to say, oh, how much is that and how many kilograms? I'm like, oh, I don't know. Of course, we use pounds. A lot of it, I just buy vegetables. I guess I'm not overpaying because I never went like, oh, wow, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. No, you can totally buy things that without being ripped off. But some places I'm like,
Right. No, but that is good to know. I've been in places where I go, well, I guess we're having, well, I always carry peanut butter and jelly with me just in case. And I go, well, guess what we're having for dinner tonight? My husband will laugh. He goes, oh, peanut butter and jelly again? I'm like, yes, yes. On a croissant.
hey, on a croissant is not so bad.
Oh, it was the best. It was the best. But it was nice when we went out the next day, we went to Chateau Melendez, Josephine Baker estate. Oh my gosh, the gardens there were great. I loved the whole story. It was well documented. And so I knew what was going on.
That's a particularly good one. I mean, honestly, Chateau de Milan is not to be missed because it's kind of old and dusty the way the museum is done, but it's very well done. You see a lot of photos of her and her kids and her performances and her dresses and all of that. And also her participation in the French Resistance is also outlined. She was just an outstanding person. So I think that one is not to be missed. And they also have a bird show.
Yeah, I agree. And the garden was great.
Right. The garden's beautiful and the bird show is fun.
They were not doing the birds that day. We were just a little bit off season, but I had read the reviews on it and it sounded really good.
Yeah, they don't do them every day. And some of these birds, they don't want to work when it's cold.
That's so funny. So then in the afternoon, we went to Castelnau-la-Chapelle.
Yes, Castelnau-la-Chapelle, yes.
We saw all the cool weapons. We saw the trebuchet being launched. So if you had kids or your husband really likes armory stuff and weapons, or you like armory stuff and weapons, the view was spectacular. And I would recommend going there just because it was well done. And what was cool about that is what I had read about it was that it had fallen into disrepair. They were actually using it as a stone quarry until, I guess, about the 60s or something. I think it was about the 60s. They decided they could make it a historical place. And so they stopped ripping it down and they restored it. And I was glad they did. It was worth going to see.
Yeah, and it is one where definitely they emphasize the weaponry and the war machines. And so if you want to see that, the Castelnau is excellent. Sometimes they do like whole fairs with kind of tournaments, jousting, things like that.
Oh, cool.
But it's only on specific days when they know they're going to have a big turnout on school holidays or vacation times or whatever.
Yes, no, we saw school groups there, but they were there basically to watch the trebuchet launch, the things that they were launching. I don't know. I mean, I like anything. So that's.
As a teacher, you probably noticed school groups in lots of different places.
Yes, very much so.
French kids are lucky. We get taken to a lot of cool stuff with school.
Yes, they really, really are lucky. I look and go, oh, I wish. And then another thing we did from Sarlat that I loved and would recommend was we rented electric bikes. We were probably the only idiots out there riding. We bought garden gloves because our hands were so cold. We didn't bring mittens with us, but it's a flat trail, the Voie Verte.
La Voie Verte. So there's a million of Voie Verte. I'm not sure which one you took. It was from Sarlat?
Yes, it was from Sarlat to, oh gosh, Cazoules, Cazoules.
Cazouille. Okay, well, I'll look for it. I'll try and find it and put the show notes.
Okay. It's a 29-kilometer one. We did half because we were cold. And so we stopped in Rouffliac, R-O-U.
Rouffliac?
Yeah, Rouffliac, and we ate lunch at their restaurant. They had a fire going in the fireplace. But the electric bikes we rented through Liberty Cycle, and they have a kiosk set up for people to rent the bikes, but we were probably the only ones stupid enough to ride bikes. So the guy just delivered them to us, met us, and then gave us his phone number and said, call me when you're done and we'll come pick the bikes up. And we said, well, okay. And,
nice.
It was nice. We stopped in a town and got some coffee and then rode as far as we wanted. That you go through it. It's an old rail line. And so you go through a really long train tunnel. So that was cool. And the walnut trees were starting to blossom and it's flat. And on electric bikes, it was like, okay, fine. We went 9 miles each way, or 15 kilometers each way. And it wasn't exhausting at all. You just, and you stopped and took pictures, stopped in little towns. And so I would recommend that from Sarlat.
These voies vertes are absolutely a gem. We didn't have them when I was growing up in France. We didn't have them as a kid. I love that we have those things. And most towns in France, you can ask if there's a voie verte.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be the place where people go for either walking, riding, walking their dogs. On a Sunday afternoon, you see whole families. And they might not be going very far, but they will just take an afternoon stroll, a 5K or something. And it's just a very fun part of French life that city people don't experience as much. I mean, they can go to parks.
Right.
But we have these places that will take us somewhere to another village or to another town or something. And often it's on old railways, which we have a lot of in France.
Yes. Yes. Well, and actually in Texas, they've started doing that too with some of their old rail lines, and it's called Rails to Trails. You bring your bike and you can cycle from a town out to a state park and back. I think everyone's trying to figure out, what do we do with these leftover railways?
Yes. And very often you will have somewhere, somebody can give you a map that will show you where the restaurants are, where the bathrooms are, where you can refill water, things like that. Usually the local tourist office can tell you. If you're going to be on there long enough, you should find out these things. For 15 kilometers, probably you can just swing it.
Yes. Yeah, well, that we were like, okay, we're going to have lunch and we're going to eat at this restaurant because it's the first one we saw that was open. And they gave us the biggest meal I have ever had. And my husband I'm like, honey, I think we have more courses. And they just kept bringing it. And I'm like, but it was delicious. And we took some of it home and had it for dinner. So no big deal. Because I know this is bad. I carry a plastic bag with me because I know some restaurants, I don't know, is this true or not? They don't like to give you a takeaway.
Okay, so this has changed.
Okay.
Again, because French people are very much anti-gaspillage. Anti-gaspi is what we say between us. They just say, well, it would make more sense to give people their leftovers. And so some places, they don't have like styrofoam boxes or whatever, but they'll wrap it up in some foil for you and you can take it home that way. It's getting more and more common.
Well, I took home one of the last courses to come was some meat, and I just took a plastic bag out of my purse and my backpack, and I just put it in there because I was like, I can't eat one more thing, but I want to know what dessert is because I was going to eat that. So we had some leftover meat for dinner, but it was a fun day.
That's great. That's fantastic. Did you run into any problems because you don't speak French from your own admission? Was it difficult? Because these are rural places.
Okay, my husband speaks basic French. He can read it really well. And if you speak really slowly, he may be able to. But my favorite one is we went into a restaurant and he wanted to say, I have a great hunger. And so he said something, I have, let's see, femme. But I have a big hunger. But he said, I have a big wife, femme.
Yes.
And the lady looked at him and looked at me like, aren't you mad that he's calling you big? And she walked away kind of huffy. So I said, what did you say to her? He goes, I don't know. Let me look it up real quick. So we pulled up Google Translate and just said, and he goes, oh my gosh, I just said, I have a big wife or a big woman.
Fin et femme. It's almost the same, but not quite, is it? That's funny.
Right, exactly. But anyway, no, I think I'm a pretty good traveler. I have found that I never say, that's not how we do it. I try really, really hard to enjoy the culture that I'm in. If it's a slow-paced town, and I really do like those small towns, I try really hard to just be slow-paced and go and see and do and be polite and know the please, thank you, excuse me, like know those basic words before I go anyplace. And also, if you smile and pantomime, you can get just about everything.
Yeah.
I'm like really good with using my hands and pointing to things. And I'll use Google Translate if I really if I'm checking into an Airbnb or whatever, and I really need to know something specific. I'll just pull out the Google Translate.
Yeah, I can tell how you would get along. I mean, you're a smiley, friendly person, and that's what it takes, really.
I try. I don't even have to try. I pretty much, that's my,
That's who you are.
They're like, "Come on, man." I'm like, "No, no, let's not be down." All our luggage was stolen in Italy on day 3 of a 20-day trip, 8 women. Yeah, that was hard. And we just, we figured it out. But anyway, the next village we went to was, is it Cahors or Cahors?
Go.
Oh, I was really wrong.
Go.
And Cahors is not a beau village because it has too many people.
Yeah, it's a city.
Yeah, it really is. And so, but it was a great jumping off point. It's the birthplace of Malbec, which I love Malbec wine. That's one of my favorites. And I didn't know that that was actually where Malbec, it's not from South America. And so I was very surprised the vines went to South America from Cahors. So I thought that was cool. But we stopped on the way to Cahors, we stopped at Grotte des Fonts de Gomme. It's the cave with the cave paintings.
Yeah, Fond de Gomme.
Okay, yes.
But hang on, that's in the Dordogne. That's in Les Aisies.
That was we drove on the way from Sarlat to Cahors. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit out of the way. Okay.
Yes. And so we went there and they just happened to have 2 tickets left because their online ticketing wasn't working. And so it was in French. I didn't care. I just wanted to see the cave paintings. They only let 78 people in, 13 at a time. So definitely you have to have your tickets ahead of time. I enjoyed it. I like, all of that prehistoric stuff.
Yeah, so Fond de Gomme is a bit tricky to visit because they used to have big problems with this reservation system. They've made a little better, I think. I wrote a blog post about how to get tickets to Fond de Gomme. If you go to joinusinfrance.com, there's a tab that says blog, and one of the blog posts is specifically about how to get tickets to Fond de Gomme. I don't remember all the details, so I'm not going to say something wrong here, but
I just said, hey, let's just go in and see because we couldn't get the online tickets and somebody had either canceled or not showed up in time. And so I just said, well, let's go. I don't care. It's in French. So the next day in Cahors, we did one of my favorite things, which was the hike from Bouzies to Saint-Cirque-la-Popie.
Yeah, Saint-Cirque-la-Popie. Yes.
It's 10 kilometers round trip, 6.2 miles. It's flat until you hit the Cirque.
Saint-Cirque.
Oh my God.
And then it is not flat.
You've got to be kidding. But the walk along the canal, we saw people on boats, and then they have these beautiful art sculptures carved into the wall. And the hiking it was probably one of my favorite walks. I just absolutely loved doing it, and I would highly recommend it.
Yes. The other thing that's of interest in that area is the Pêche-Merle cave, which is technically in Bouzies, I think, in the village of Bouzies. I mean, although it's up the hill a little ways. And that's a painted cave that you can also visit. So when I take people in this area, I take them to the painted cave, then to the walk, and then to Saint-Cirque. I usually drive them to Saint-Cirque. I mean, we do part of the walk. The first part of the walk has all the art and is very interesting. And then after a while, it's just a, river. So mostly I just drive them. But hoofing. I did it once. I'm good. I did it once.
Yeah, no, I get that. And if I were to bring my friends back, I would do it again. I lived in Las Vegas for a while, and when people would come, they'd want to see the Hoover Dam. I went twice, and then I just said, I'll drop you off at the bus station. That will take you to Hoover Dam. It's the same thing. There's just things that you go, I don't want to see that again, ever.
Yeah. No, but it is beautiful, and it's a very, very nice walk.
Yes. And so both Bouzies and Cirque-la-Popie are both beau villages. So we got 2 for 1 in one day.
Oh, I didn't realize that Bouzies was a plus beau village.
I think that they had just gotten that status.
Okay.
Because they had signs kind of everywhere. And I hadn't really investigated it because it was not on my list of what else is there to do? It was a place to park our car, to be honest with you.
Exactly. They have a big, nice parking area.
And I saw, we went across this little tiny bridge, and then it was like, oh, well, wait, this is a beau village too. But I didn't know what to do there. And I knew that the hike was going to take us pretty much all day because we spent a lot of time in La Popie. But I loved that.
Yeah. And there's also boats that you can take between Saint-Cirque-la-Popie and Bouzies. So you can also do it by boat.
Oh, okay. Well, we just saw rented boats like they were taking a vacation. They got to go through the canal thing. So we saw all that, the dams and stuff. So that was kind of cool. And then our next day from Cahors, we went to St. Vincent Rive de Olt.
Okay, that one I do not know.
Okay, it is a tiny town with a beautiful little river running through it. And you could tell, like, it was definitely a charming village. I see why they picked it. The streets were cute. We just did a quick walk through, took some photos because they had just beautiful bridges and they had some flowers blooming and it was pretty gorgeous. And then we went to 2 wineries that day, Chateau Eugenie. And then my favorite was La Berangerie, Barangerie. And it was a Malbec. I showed up. I didn't know I needed a reservation. We just pulled up like maybe, dumb tourists. And the lady said, "Oh, I'll see if my son can do a tasting right now." And over the walkie-talkie, her son said, "I am loading a truck right now for Paris, Mom. You know that. I can't do that." So the owner invited us into her house and did a wine tasting with us at her kitchen table just for the 2 of us. And we got to meet her family. It was one of those, special moments that happens during a vacation that you couldn't have planned it. And she said, "Oh, yeah, we're just really not open for that right now. And usually you call and make a reservation." I'm like, "I am so sorry." And then we bought 2 cases of wine and it was absolutely delicious. I have a picture with her and she said, "Oh, please come back sometime and visit." And her English was quite good, thank goodness. And it was definitely a magic moment for us.
That's wonderful. Yeah, some of these wineries are hoity-toities and will not talk to you unless you have a reservation. But some of them are really easygoing. Like in the Southwest, we're simple people.
Right. No, it was great. And then in the afternoon, we went to Belcastle.
Yes, Belcastel, yes. That's gorgeous.
The reflection of the bridge on the water was worth stopping for, and cobbled streets and stone tile roofs and 15th century church.
And a nice deep height walk as well.
Yeah, I really got my exercise. I really got my exercise. Okay. And then the next day we drove out to Conques for one night. We only spent one night there because we just really wanted to see the St. Foy Abbey or church or whatever and the gray stained glass windows. But the thing that I like the best are the reliquaries that are in the treasure room. All over the world, I love finding the reliquaries. When I was in Italy, I pieced together I had St. Catherine's finger, her head, all in different churches. And that's pretty terrible, but, that's kind of one of my things.
I read a fascinating book. There's a French historian, a legit historian, okay? She has a PhD. She decided to do an inventory of saints' bits and parts. And
I would love her.
Yes. I don't know if her book have been translated, but she has found out that there are some saints have a lot of fingers. We can account for a lot of fingers of saints and a lot of femur bones and things like, oh, they probably had 5 legs because we can,
Right. Everyone has a leg.
So that's a very interesting hobby.
Well, what I also found was interesting was that they stole some of the reliquaries because Cahors, the cathedral, wasn't on the St. James route into Santiago. And so they wanted to be on the pilgrimage route, and they sent the people out to steal the bones of St. Foy and other reliquaries. And so their treasure trove is full of reliquaries stolen by priests. And I thought that was just like, wow. Yeah, just like, let's just be famous. And it took them like 6 years to go undercover. And so I thought that was cool. And then the story of St. Foy, being 14 and she was basically barbecued and beheaded. It was pretty bad. My husband had studied architecture. And so that was one of the things that he had studied was Conques, and he loves medieval history. And
yeah, so that's a beautiful Romanesque church. The church itself is not very big. It's one of those places that is surprisingly accessible. a lot of these villages are really not accessible to people who have, limited mobility, wheelchairs, etc. That one is pretty good. So just want to mention it just in case.
Yeah, no, because I did notice that we stayed, and I'm not going to mention the place we stayed because it wasn't great, but it was at the bottom of the hill. So we drove up as far as we could go. But I did notice that up close there was handicap parking, and there was, a nice grade that you could, get a wheelchair up or stairs to climb. And so you are correct with that. But I liked it. 4 nights in Sarlat and 4 nights in Cahors. And this was just one night, like see the church, and so worth seeing. Gray and white stained glass windows. I had never seen anything like that. And it was interesting. It was really interesting. We left Cahors and we stopped in Capdenac, Capdenac.
Okay.
And there were towers to climb and ramparts to walk and fountains. And they had and I would particularly like this for children, they had a sensory walk. And it was medicinal herbs and a garden of 5 senses. And they had a big wall that held these little bamboo tubes where like all different insects, they called it an insect department. All the little insects were inside, and we saw some kids there, and they were just, pointing to things. And so I thought that was worth mentioning. Anytime you have kids, it's nice to know, oh, that would be a cool place to take them. And
yeah, that's great.
And so I thought that was cool. And so then we spent 4 nights in Martel. And I love that town. I have a great picture of my husband walking back from the boulangerie with a baguette under his arm, looking as French as he possibly can. It was a great town. And again, but we missed the market day. I was like, no, but that,
it happens.
We stayed at Evelyn's place. It's an Airbnb, and I really enjoyed that. They live next door, and then there was an apartment with a washing machine and a nice little kitchen, and the bedrooms were upstairs. 1 bedroom for adults. They had a bunk bedroom as well, but they were just the sweetest people and spoke no English, and I pantomimed my way through it. We enjoyed their company. We had a glass of wine with them one night, and it was well located in the town, like right around from the market where they have the markets.
Martel is not a very touristy town, even though it's lovely.
No, I agree. I liked it. It was a good jumping off point because then we went to Rocamadour. We made the big mistake of parking at the bottom, and we walked, and there is a tram that will take you, but because we were kind of off season, the tram wasn't running frequently. So we just like, okay, let's just walk this, and then we can eat more for lunch. And so, that was kind of our thought. And then we get up to the level where the town is, and we realize,
not done.
No, we're not done.
Not done.
And the Station of the Cross and walking up, and it was gorgeous. The views, we would just stop and turn around, the views and just the town streets. And it's a little touristy. They do have a lot of, I call them like t-shirt shops and all that. It was absolutely UNESCO World Heritage Site, and I could understand why.
So Rocamadour, you have to try and park at the top. Drive up and up and up and up as far as you can and park up there. And then they have elevators. If you park at the bottom and you find the elevators, I think you pay $15 or whatever, and you can ride the elevators all the way up or all the way down or back and forth. And it makes your life a lot easier because that is seriously steep.
Well, I ate a lot of bread that day.
There you go.
It's like, oh, I can eat that. Oh, I can have an ice cream. I justified a lot of eating that day. So
that's how we do it.
Yes, well, that is. I get that. And so then we explored Martel. They have 7 towers, and that's what Martel is famous for. But I wished I had been there during truffle season because evidently they have a big truffle walnut festival, and I would want to go do that. I would want to hunt truffles, and I love truffle flavor. So that's, that would be something that I'd like to do. So then we returned because we were actually pretty close. And I told you I wanted to canoe on the Dordogne. So we went back to La Roque-Gagnac.
La Roque-Gagnac.
And the weather was beautiful that day. We rented a canoe. And so we could we went by all of the cool places, the towns and things that rather than looking down, we were looking up. And there was so much current to the river. Honestly, we dipped our paddles maybe 3 times and just floated And then they met you at a place, they like, "Oh, well, there's a giant beach ball hanging out there, just paddle towards the shore," and then they pick you up and take you back to your car, and it was absolutely stunningly beautiful.
What was the company that you rented your boat from?
In that town, La Roque-Gageac, in that town, there are canoe companies just right down by the river.
Okay. Just pick one.
Yeah, pick one. Pick one. I think they all did the same thing. And, we picked the one we picked because the guy smiled at us and waved and he seemed nice. And the price seemed like what I would pay in the United States with transportation to and from. But it was really, really fun. I definitely enjoyed that. We also went to Geoffrey de Padriac. It's the underground cave.
Le gouffre de Padirac.
I would highly recommend that for people with kids. We went, honestly, it couldn't have been any better. There were hardly any people there, which I can tell how many people could possibly be there by how they have like wait in this line, wait in this line, wait in this line. And we had a reservation. We walked up, climbed down into the cave using the stairs, and oh my gosh, got down there. It's magical under there with the water and all the lights. And in our boat, there was just one other couple. That was it.
Wow.
And you just floated along, and the guide was, talking to us in French and English and just talking about the cave formations. And I loved it. So I would suggest, going early in the day, having a reservation, and going at the beginning of April, like not during Easter time,
Exactly. Yeah. So there are times in the year where you really need a reservation for this one. Other times it's not so bad like you experienced. I've only been there when it was very, very mobbed. And actually, one time we stopped by hoping to get a ticket and we couldn't get a ticket. So it can happen that if you don't have a reservation, never mind, not today.
And I had no idea because they had us kind of in groups. And so I thought, oh, it might have a lot of people. And then I got down there and I'm like, I'm taking pictures of this and there's nobody in the pictures. I'm like, this is amazing. Like I said, this was an amazing, amazing trip. And after that, we went to Artois, Autoire.
Okay.
And there's only 350 people that live in this village, and they have a waterfall hike. And so we hiked out to the waterfalls. We went through the little village. They had some wine tasting and they had some cheese tasting places open. Not much going on. I saw a house that if I was in the market to buy a house, I would have bought it. It was the most charming stone cottage. And it was so beautiful, and the people were very lovely. And we had our peanut butter and jelly on a croissant in that village. So I remember that because my husband looked at me and goes, "This is the best peanut butter and jelly sandwich I've ever had."
Ah.
It happened to be on the way. I'm like, "Oh, we have to stop there. It's a beau village." You know how you just, we were kind of, I'd planned this around the villages. So, that was.
We're going to have to wrap up, I'm afraid, because we've been talking a long time.
Okay. Okay, well, the only one I want to mention is, we went to Carnac, and that was cool, but Colons Rouge,
Colon La Rouge? Yes.
the Red Village, oh my gosh, I love that, and we ate at M-A-R-A, Mara, I-C-H-E-R, La Mara Racer.
Okay.
Anyway, I had the best duck burger in my entire life. It was so good, and I love the village. And then our last one was Turin, and that was, you could climb up to the top and they had a French garden on top of the roof.
Turin, how do you spell that?
Turenne.
Turin, okay.
And so you parked and then you hiked up to the top of the castle and there was a beautiful French garden up there, and we talked with the gardener, kind of talked. And so I would highly recommend these.
Wonderful, wonderful. It sounds like you had an amazing time. Are you planning more trips to France?
Not yet. Not yet. I've got a couple other trips I'm going to do.
Other places.
Yeah, other places. I'll get back there because I have some picked out in southern France. So that's might be the next.
Wonderful. And I like that you just stayed 4 nights in each places. You didn't try to rush. You had plenty to do everywhere you went. I mean, you didn't get bored, right?
No, and that's the whole thing is like, you have to look. That's why it was one night in Conch. That's what we had to do. But the other ones, I'm like, have a home base and just keep coming back to it. No, I wasn't bored. As a matter of fact, I was like I wish we had 4 more nights to do because I had a couple more beaux villages that were nearby that we didn't see, but it was wonderful. I love your country. I really, really love your country.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Jackie, it's been a delight talking to you. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And well, whenever you come back, I hope you have just as good a time as last time.
I will. And thank you so much, and I love your walking map.
Oh, the voice map stuff.
The voice map of Montmartre is fantastic. My husband and I did that when we were in Paris this last time, and I will want to go back and do the rest of yours.
Thank you.
And thank you for being you and putting all your time and effort into this. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much, Jackie, and bon voyage wherever that takes you next time.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye, Annie.
Au revoir. Again, I want to thank my patrons for giving back and supporting the show. Patrons get several exclusive rewards for doing that. You can see them at patreon.com/join us. That's Patreon. Join us, no spaces or dashes. I don't have any new patrons to thank this week, but I'll be chatting with all my current patrons on Zoom this weekend, and that's always a fun time. I would love for you to join them too. You can do it for as little as $3 a month, but if you can afford it, I would love to have you pledge some more so you can have access to more of the rewards. And to support Elise, go to patreon.com/EliseArt, ELYSART. Every September, France celebrates les Journées Européennes du Patrimoine, or Heritage Weekend. This year, it'll be on Saturday, September 20th, and Sunday, September 21st. And this year, they have a theme, architecture. It's a chance to step behind the doors of places that are normally closed to the public all over Paris and every region in France. Millions of people line up to explore government buildings, private mansions, museums, archives, even parts of the Élysée Palace. And best of all, these visits are free for that weekend. I will not try to list every one of them because every arrondissement of Paris will have events. Every city in France will do the same. The list is very, very long. Here's the thing. Some of these visits are so popular that the minute tickets become available, they'll be sold out. Those visits are free, but you need a free ticket. That's how they know how many people they're going to let in. So if you're in France that weekend, my recommendation is that you start searching for your particular town or arrondissement and select what you'd like to visit. And keep searching for that place, the name of the place, and just say tickets and Journée du Patrimoine or something like this. Most of these pages are not going to be in English because, it's ephemeris. It's just 2 days, and there's not much point translating a page that's only relevant for 2 days, right? So search in French and do it every day until you find what you want. You have to be determined to enjoy this really to the fullest. Some highlights this year include, in the first arrondissement of Paris, the gorgeous building of the Banque de France, le Palais Royal. So there's several administrations in there. La Cour d'Appel, and the Arc de Triomphe du Carrousel. So that's fun because it's never open to the public. Normally, it's the small Arc de Triomphe by the Louvre. Comédie Française is also open. Normally, you can only see some of it when you go to a show. In the second arrondissement, La Tour Jean Sans Peur is fun. La BNF, and it's usually open some, but they open more things. And in the third, the Lycée Henri IV is going to be open to the public. And we've mentioned it a ton on this podcast because it's a place where a lot of very smart and famous people, French people, went to high school. You get me. There are 20 arrondissements. I can't list them all. But if you start Googling for the places nearest you or places that you've heard might be open, don't give up until you found something for you. Heritage Weekend, Journée du Patrimoine, is one of the most exciting ways to experience France. Not just the postcard sites, but the hidden layers of history that usually stay behind closed doors. I know near me, we have several chateaus that are never open to the public. But one of the deals when they get public monies to help keep the chateau in good repair is that they have to open it a certain number of days in the month. And so that's why almost all the chateaux in France that get public monies will be open on the Journée du Patrimoine. So it's worth checking, and good luck getting tickets, especially if you want to go to the Élysée Palace. Good luck with that. So we had a kind of a scary/fun experience the last few weeks at my house. We had an old fridge. Wasn't that old, but it was an Electrolux fridge. It's a French brand. Shittiest fridge we've ever had, okay? Just never buy an Electrolux fridge. Anyway, it was not working properly. It was giving us all sorts of problems. And so my husband decided, last time I was in Spain, he decided to get a new fridge. And when they came to deliver this fridge, they removed the old one and tried to put it in, and they couldn't fit it in. It's a standard 60 centimeter size width, but it wasn't going in. And the guy said, I'm sorry, we can't put it in. What would you like us to do? So he said, well, let's keep the old one and put the new one in the garage. And when my wife comes back, we'll see what we can do. And in the meantime, I thought about it, and mulled it over, whatever. And then I decided, okay, I can scrape off a couple of millimeters of, this is how crazy I am, of plaster. But when I looked at it more carefully, that wasn't going to happen because there's some metal bits and there's some brick bits, and I could scrape off plaster, but I cannot scrape off brick, okay? I'm not that good. Then my brother-in-law said, oh, I could put I had a 7 centimeter wall there. He said I could redo that piece of wall and do just a 5 centimeter wall. Okay, but then you have to mess with the baseboards. You have to mess with the tile. Oh, it was just, yeah. Or we could just redo that section of the kitchen, which is getting older. It's probably 15 years old. But I just wasn't enthusiastic about spending all that money on a part kitchen. That's fine for now. I mean, eventually we're going to have to replace it, but for now, it's okay. So a couple of nights ago, I told my husband, okay, I want to try to shove that thing in because the delivery people couldn't get it in, but maybe I can. And I had been looking at this wall very, very carefully. In the meantime, we got rid of the old fridge and plugged in the new one in a different part of the kitchen where we didn't want it to stay, but it was just a temporary solution. And so we emptied the fridge, pushed it in the right position. And I swear to God, we pushed so hard to get that thing in. And we did it at an angle a little bit so that I thought if we can get it a few millimeters in at that angle, then we can straighten it out and push it in. Because the previous fridge was the same width. So there was no reason why this new fridge, which is a Liebherr fridge, it's a German Liebherr fridge, much better brand. And we've had a Liebherr fridge before and it was good. And we pushed and we shoved and we shook and it took 20 minutes, but we got that thing in. And it was such a relief to have the fridge. And so it's very, very tight in there. It has room in the back for venting, but it's a tight spot. So there you have it. The adventures of Annie's kitchen in France this time. I'm stubborn. That's probably why this podcast still runs, is because I'm stubborn. Once I get it in my head that I will do something, I will do something, including shoving a fridge into a space that's too small, according to the professional delivery people. I can't believe that when they were doing the delivery, my husband tried to argue with them to try harder. And he said, well, talk to my wife. And I talked to them and I couldn't talk them into trying any harder. And if I had been there, maybe I could have been more menacing. I don't know. All right. My thanks to podcast editors Anne and Christian Codovan, who produced the transcripts. Next week on the podcast, an episode with Greg Furry that I'm calling Pont du Gard, Dog Sleds, and a Dash of Chaos with returning guest Greg Furry. It was a great conversation. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you join me next time so we can look around France together. Au revoir. The Join Us in France Travel Podcast is written, hosted, and produced by Annie Sargent and copyright 2025 by Addicted to France. It is released under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license.